You may think that eating sugar every now and then is harmless, but after 60, this is one of the biggest traps that silently harms your brain. And most seniors only discover this when memory loss has already started. I need to tell you something that very few doctors explain clearly. The real danger isn't the sugar you taste. It's the sugar that stays inside your organs, accumulating day after day without you feeling anything. People believe memory loss happens because of aging, or just genetics. But in most cases, the brain slows down for a much simpler reason. Your body can't handle the amount of sugar it receives, even if you think you don't eat that much. And this overload doesn't only appear as high blood sugar, it spreads everywhere. When sugar stays too long in your blood, your brain becomes inflamed and tired. When sugar reaches the brain in excess, it disrupts the way your neurons communicate. When it overwhelms your liver, it creates fat buildup. When it accumulates inside cells, tissues, or bones, everything starts aging faster. And here is something that may shock you. Many researchers already refer to Alzheimer's disease as a kind of energy failure in the brain, meaning the brain can no longer use sugar properly, becoming starved even when sugar is abundant. This doesn't happen overnight. It happens because over the years, the brain becomes resistant to the sugar it receives. It stops responding. It stops absorbing. It stops functioning the way it should. And the first sign is exactly what many seniors dismiss as normal aging. Forgetting names, misplacing objects, losing focus, mixing up dates, feeling confused at unusual moments. You see, diabetes is when there's too much sugar in the blood. Fatty liver is when sugar turns into fat inside the liver. Excess weight is when sugar is stored in your fat cells. Many cancers thrive in a high-sugar environment. An accelerated memory loss often appears when the brain can no longer manage all the sugar that reaches it. Different organs. One root problem. Your body is receiving more sugar than it can handle. But here is the part most seniors never hear. You don't need to eat cake or candy for this to happen. There are habits, combinations, and innocent mistakes that push sugar into your system even when you think you are eating healthy. And these mistakes accelerate memory loss in a way that most people completely overlook. Today, I'm going to show you the 7 sugar mistakes that quietly damage your brain after 60. These mistakes speed up confusion, forgetfulness, tired thinking, and long-term cognitive decline. Almost all seniors make at least one of them, and they don't even realize it. And the good news is, as soon as you fix these mistakes, your brain begins to recover clarity, focus, and stability much faster than you imagine. Before we continue, let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Collins. I'm a geriatric physician specializing in memory and brain aging for the past 25 years. I've spent my entire career studying how lifestyle choices, especially sugar, affect the aging brain. And I speak to you with affection, respect, and total clarity, because I want you to understand something extremely important. The problem is not aging. It's the hidden overload your brain has been trying to carry by itself for too long. I will explain everything in the simplest way possible. No difficult language, no scary terminology. Just the truth you deserve to hear. Explained with care, patience, and the certainty of someone who has treated thousands of seniors who struggled with the same symptoms you might be noticing right now. I want you to stay with me until the end, because the last mistake, number 7, is the one that destroys the most neurons. Most people do it every morning without knowing. And when you fix this one, your memory improvement can be surprisingly fast. Take a deep breath. Let's start fixing this today. Your brain deserves relief. When we talk about sugar and the aging brain, most people imagine that the danger comes only from what is sweet. But after 60, the story becomes much more dramatic. Your body no longer manages sugar the way it did when you were young. The same amount that your brain tolerated at 30 becomes a heavy burden at 65. And this is why I insist so strongly. Sugar is not just a taste. It is a force that enters your bloodstream, affects your cells, and changes the way your brain works from the inside out. What I need you to understand now is something that almost no one hears from their doctor. Your brain doesn't have pain receptors. That means it can be suffering intensely without sending you any clear warning. When sugar disrupts your neurons, they don't scream. They don't hurt. They don't burn on the surface. They simply slow down, disconnect, and weaken silently. And this silence is what makes sugar so dangerous for seniors, because by the time you notice the symptoms, the damage has already been in motion for years. This is why small mistakes matter. A sweetened drink in the morning, a diet food at lunch, a sauce full of hidden sugar at dinner. None of these feel dangerous. But in an aging brain, they create a chain reaction. Inflammation increases. Insulin becomes less effective. Neurons receive too much energy at once, and then not enough, and the brain becomes exhausted, the same way a battery loses charge faster when it's overused. You might have noticed something recently. Moments of sudden mental fog, episodes where you walk into a room and forget why, difficulty keeping attention on a simple task, losing the thread of a conversation. Many seniors accept this as just part of getting older, but I need to tell you something firmly and lovingly. This is not normal aging. This is your brain asking for relief from years of overload. It's not a broken brain. It's an overwhelmed brain. And overwhelmed brains can recover, but only when we remove what is suffocating them. There is a reason so many chronic conditions worsen together. Excess sugar doesn't stay in one place. It doesn't respect boundaries. It doesn't say, "I will only affect your blood," or "I will only affect your liver." No. Once inside your system, it travels everywhere and forces your organs to make a choice. Absorb it, store it, or suffer the consequences of having too much. Over time, your liver becomes heavier, your blood vessels stiffer, your pancreas more tired, and your brain more confused. Everything becomes slower, not because of age, but because every organ is fighting the same invader. And this is where most seniors fall into the trap. They think, "I barely eat sweets." But many foods you see as harmless act like sugar the moment they enter your body. White bread, crackers, certain fruits in large amounts, breakfast cereals, juices, and even some medications with sweeteners. Your brain does not distinguish. It only reacts. And the reaction is always the same: instability, inflammation, and fatigue. I want you to imagine your brain for a moment. A delicate network of billions of cells that depend on steady, gentle, balanced energy. Now imagine that this network is hit with sugar spikes again and again, every single day. These spikes force the brain to accelerate, then crash, accelerate, then crash again. This roller coaster is one of the fastest ways to weaken memory, and most seniors experience this roller coaster without even knowing it's happening. Here's the terrifying part. But I promise, I'm telling you this so you can protect yourself, not to frighten you. When the brain becomes resistant to sugar, it begins to starve, while surrounded by fuel it can no longer use properly. A starving brain is a confused brain. A confused brain is a slow brain. And a slow brain is a vulnerable brain. Vulnerable to forgetfulness. Vulnerable to disorientation. Vulnerable to diseases that take away independence, identity, and clarity. But let me reassure you of something with all my heart. Your brain is not beyond saving. Even after years of overload, even after decades of routine, the brain responds incredibly well when sugar exposure is lowered. Seniors who make these changes often feel more present, more awake, and more stable in just a few weeks. Not because of miracles, but because their brain is finally receiving the peace it has been begging for. And before revealing the 7 mistakes that accelerate memory decline, I need to ask you something important, and answer it honestly to yourself. Do you feel different from how you did 10 years ago? Not older, just different? More tired mentally? More easily overwhelmed? More forgetful during simple routines? These signs matter. They are your body communicating. And I want you to know that by correcting these 7 sugar mistakes, you are not just improving memory. You are reclaiming control of your brain's future. Before I reveal the 7 sugar mistakes, I need to prepare your mind for something that may feel uncomfortable at first, but necessary. When I speak firmly, it's not to scare you. It's to give you the truth that protects. Many seniors spend years listening to soft explanations, leaving the most important part unsaid. And that silence costs memory, independence, and quality of life. Not today. Not with you. What I'm about to tell you is something I usually only say in private consultations. Your brain remembers every meal you've eaten for the last 20, 30, even 40 years. It remembers the habits you repeated, the mornings you started with sugar spikes, the evenings you ended with hidden sugars, the snacks you thought were harmless. Sugar doesn't only affect you on the day you consume it. It leaves a trail inside your body, a trail that your brain must deal with every single day. And this is why the smallest improvements now can create massive changes ahead, because your brain is tired of fighting alone. It wants your help. It wants stability. And it wants peace from the constant chemical storm that sugar creates. Let me explain something in the simplest way possible, because this truth is often hidden behind scientific words. The older brain becomes less flexible. At 40, it compensates for dietary mistakes. At 50, it still manages. At 60, it begins to struggle. At 70, it becomes sensitive. And after 80, even small mistakes can have big consequences. This is not because you're weak. It's because your brain is precious. And like anything precious, it needs protection. Now, imagine a brain forced to deal with sugar everywhere. In the bloodstream, in the liver, in the tissues, in the cells, in the pancreas. When too much sugar enters the body, everything becomes overwhelmed. Your blood becomes thicker. Your cells become tired. Your liver becomes stressed. Your energy becomes unstable. Your hormones become irritated. And your neurons become confused and slow, as if submerged underwater, trying to fire signals through a heavy fog. This is why some seniors describe moments of mental slowness as feeling disconnected, like the mind is floating, or thinking through cotton. They're not imagining it. This sensation is your brain struggling to navigate an environment that has been pushed out of balance. And sugar is often the silent trigger behind this imbalance. And here is where things become even more dramatic, but also more empowering. The aging brain cannot protect itself from sugar. It relies entirely on you to make the right choices. Every single neuron depends on the next decision you make at the table, in the kitchen, or at the supermarket. That is how powerful your choices are at this stage of life. You are not at the mercy of chance. You are not doomed by age. You are in control of what enters your body, and that alone decides how fast or how slowly your brain will age. I want you to remember something. The brain has an incredible ability to heal when the overload is removed. It can reconnect neural pathways. It can reduce inflammation. It can restore clarity. It can strengthen memory. But it can only do this when the burden of sugar stops hitting it like a wave. And this is exactly why these 7 mistakes matter so much. Because they are not obvious mistakes. They are silent habits, daily routines, healthy choices that secretly act like sugar bombs inside your body. Mistakes that seniors make believing they are doing the right thing. For example, many people think fruit juice is healthy, but for the aging brain it behaves almost like pure sugar. Others start the day with foods that spike blood sugar immediately, pushing the brain into stress mode before they even get dressed. Some seniors avoid desserts but consume products labeled light, low fat, or zero, which are filled with sweeteners that confuse the brain even more, making memory weaker, not stronger. And there are the evening habits, the ones done in silence when no one is watching, that quietly overload the liver and force the brain to fight through the night instead of resting. You may not realize it yet, but these small mistakes create the perfect environment for memory decline. When your brain receives too much sugar, it becomes inflamed. When it becomes inflamed, it becomes slower. When it becomes slower, it becomes vulnerable. When it becomes vulnerable, it loses resilience. And the cycle continues, unless you break it. That is why I'm speaking with intensity, because I've seen seniors transform their brains simply by correcting these 7 mistakes. People who could not remember appointments began waking up sharper. People who felt confused in conversations regained confidence. People who feared losing themselves found stability again. And I want that for you. You deserve clarity. You deserve control. You deserve a brain that supports your life, not one that holds you back. If you're ready, I'll now begin revealing these 7 sugar mistakes that accelerate memory loss, starting with the first one, the one almost every senior does without noticing. The one that begins the cycle of overload from the moment you wake up. Now that your mind is prepared, I want you to pay very close attention. What I'm about to say may feel uncomfortable, but it is exactly what protects your memory. These are the 7 sugar mistakes that silently accelerate brain aging after 60, and I need you to understand them deeply, because each one creates a different type of overload inside your brain, an overload your neurons can no longer ignore. I will speak to you slowly, firmly, and clearly. Because every detail here matters. The first mistake is starting the day with sugar spikes. Many seniors wake up feeling a little tired or unsteady, and they think the problem is lack of energy. So they reach for something sweet, a juice, a slice of white bread, a biscuit, a cereal, or even a cup of coffee loaded with sweeteners. But the aging brain cannot handle this shock. Morning spikes are like hitting your brain with a sudden electrical surge. They make your neurons fire too fast, then crash shortly after. This crash creates confusion, forgetfulness, irritability, and fatigue. And the worst part is, most people think this is normal. It isn't. It's the result of overwhelming your brain during the most sensitive moment of the day. The second mistake is believing that natural sugar is always harmless. Many seniors replace desserts with honey, brown sugar, agave syrup, or fruit juices thinking they are doing something healthy. But your brain does not see these as gentle alternatives. It sees them as concentrated sugar arriving too quickly. Liquids and syrups enter your bloodstream almost immediately, creating the exact same overload that harms neurons. Even large quantities of fruit at once can cause instability for an aging brain. This doesn't mean fruit is bad. It means timing, portions, and combinations matter more than ever. The third mistake is eating sugar late at night. This one is incredibly dangerous for the aging brain, and most people do it without thinking. After 60, your liver, pancreas, and brain all slow down in the evening. When you eat something sweet after dinner, a cookie, a chocolate, a piece of cake, even sweetened tea, you force your organs to work overtime while your body is trying to rest. Instead of repairing your brain, the night is spent fighting sugar. Many seniors wake up confused, foggy, with headaches or blurry memory the next morning, and they blame aging. But it's not age. It's nighttime sugar stealing the hours your brain needed for healing. The fourth mistake is mixing sugar with refined carbohydrates. This combination is far more damaging than people realize. When you eat sugar together with white bread, pasta, crackers, potatoes, or pastries, your body breaks all of it down into glucose at high speed. This creates a double spike, one from the sugar itself and another from the refined carbs. This double spike inflames the brain in a way that is especially harmful for seniors. It drains your clarity, slows your thinking, and weakens your focus. It's like forcing the brain to run a marathon when it can barely handle a walk. The fifth mistake is trusting diet, zero, and light products. I wish this weren't true, but many of these items contain artificial sweeteners that confuse your brain. They trick your taste buds, your hormones, and your metabolism. Your brain expects sugar, prepares for sugar, sends signals for sugar, but sugar doesn't come. This mismatch increases cravings, weakens concentration, and destabilizes your appetite. Some seniors even experience dizziness or mental fog after consuming these products, but they never suspect the cause. The aging brain cannot handle chemical confusion. It needs stability, not tricks. The sixth mistake is using sugar as emotional comfort. Many seniors eat something sweet, not because they're hungry, but because they're anxious, lonely, bored, or stressed. The problem is that emotional sugar hits the brain harder than regular sugar. It triggers a surge of chemicals that make you feel better for a moment, then leave you drained, unfocused, and mentally tired shortly after. This cycle slowly erodes your brain's resilience, and the more often it happens, the more difficult it becomes to break. I say this with love. Your emotions deserve care, not sugar. Your brain deserves comfort, not chemicals. And finally, the seventh mistake, the most damaging, the one that destroys clarity faster than all the others combined: eating sugar on an empty stomach. When your stomach is empty, sugar enters your bloodstream like a flood, hitting your brain without any barrier to soften the impact. It spikes your blood sugar, overstimulates your neurons, inflames your tissues, and creates a sudden wave of confusion that can last the entire day. This mistake is incredibly common among seniors. A piece of candy before a meal, a sip of sweet coffee, a bite of a sweet biscuit. These tiny habits create enormous damage over time. The aging brain cannot tolerate sugar without the presence of other nutrients. When sugar enters alone, it hits like a storm. But here's the part I want you to hold tightly. Every one of these mistakes can be fixed. And when they are corrected, your brain begins to breathe again. Your neurons finally get a break. Your memory begins to sharpen. Your clarity begins to return. This isn't magic. It's biology responding to your protection. If you've recognized yourself in any of these 7 mistakes, don't feel guilty. Feel empowered. Because now you know exactly what has been draining your memory and exactly what steps will bring your brain back to life. Now that you know the 7 sugar mistakes that silently overwhelm the aging brain, I want you to imagine something with me. Picture your brain not as something distant or mysterious, but as a living garden, delicate, beautiful, capable of renewal even after years of storms. Every day, this garden tries to grow, repair, reconnect, and stay alive. But when sugar floods the body in the wrong ways, it's as if a heavy rain falls again and again without giving the soil time to breathe. The roots become tired. The ground becomes unstable. The flowers, your memories, struggle to stay strong. And yet, the most extraordinary thing about the brain is its resilience. Even after decades of exposure, even after years of routine, it can revive. It can reorganize. It can regain clarity. But only when the storms stop. Only when the overload ends. Only when you decide to protect it. I want to talk to you now with the tenderness and firmness of someone who has seen thousands of seniors transform their minds. You may not realize how powerful your next decisions are. A person can spend 40 years making the same mistake and change everything in a single month. I've watched seniors regain energy in their eyes, strength in their voice, stability in their thoughts, simply because they removed the excess sugar that was exhausting their neurons. They didn't need medication to fix the brain. They needed relief. And relief begins with awareness. Relief begins with choosing differently. Relief begins with understanding that every habit you change today is a message to your brain saying, I'm here now. I'm protecting you. You're not fighting alone anymore. Let me explain something that few doctors take the time to say clearly. Your brain does not age the way your skin or hair does. The brain ages based on burden, the weight of inflammation, the instability of energy, the overload of sugar. When the burden decreases, the aging slows. When the burden lifts, the aging rewinds. And this is why many seniors who reduce sugar experience sharper thinking, more stable moods, faster recall, deeper sleep, and unexpected waves of mental clarity. You might think, is it too late for me? And I want to look you in the eyes and tell you with absolute certainty, no, it is not too late. Not if you're listening. Not if you're willing to act. Not if you care about your brain enough to make changes starting today. Your brain has been waiting for this moment, waiting for you to notice it, waiting for you to lighten the load it has carried in silence for decades. And now, I want to gently invite you to reflect on something very important. Out of the 7 sugar mistakes we talked about, which ones do you see in your own routine? Which ones have been following you for years without you realizing it? Which ones might be affecting your mornings, your focus, your conversations, your decisions? I ask you this not to judge you. Never. I ask to awaken awareness. I ask because naming the mistake is the first step to breaking it. When you recognize the mistake, you remove its power. When you replace it, you give strength back to your brain. And I want you to tell me, if you feel comfortable, which of these mistakes you make most often. Is it the morning sugar spike? Is it the late-night treat? Is it trusting diet products? Is it eating sugar on an empty stomach? Or maybe the emotional sugar that sneaks in on difficult days? Your comment matters. It helps you commit. It helps you remember. It helps you choose differently tomorrow morning. Before I close, let me give you one final gift. Something I tell my patients in the moments when they feel uncertain. Your brain is not failing you. It is protecting you the only way it knows how. If it slows down, it's because it's overwhelmed. If it forgets, it's because it's tired. If it struggles, it's because it needs help. And you're giving that help right now. Not through fear, but through understanding. Not through guilt, but through awareness. Not through pressure, but through love. Real love for yourself, your health, your future. And if you want, in the next video, I can show you something even more powerful. The foods that clean the brain, the nutrients that stabilize neurons, and the habits that seniors use to sharpen memory naturally, without suffering and without strict rules. Just let me know if you want that next step. Thank you for being here with me, listening, learning, and taking care of yourself. Your brain feels every decision you make, and today, you gave it a reason to hope. Which of the 7 mistakes have you made the most? Would you like me to bring the next topic? The foods that protect memory after 60?